Hi everyone and welcome to another video. We're going to talk about my best books of 2022. Yay! So I don't really have a specific order for these books. I picked 11. I couldn't pick 10. Picked 11. And not really real order. There is kind of a top 3 and there is a bottom 3, 4-ish. But within that, nothing very specific. Now let's go. First off, we have The Brick. I think this is the longest book I read. Maybe. There might be another one. But it's A Suitable Boy by Vikram Seth. I talked about it quite a couple of times because it took me a while to finish it. So this is a book set in India in the 1960s. And there are a couple of storylines and a couple of characters and families, but the most important storyline, the main one, is about Lata, whose mother has decided she needs to marry and who sets off a quest to find a suitable boy for her to marry. And she gets a couple of suitors, a couple of boys, men that are interested in what that means. And there's also a storyline surrounding a young man who is not necessarily living his best life and whose family is sick of him just being a playboy and sends him off to the countryside, etc., etc. But it really touches on a lot of subjects within Indian society at that time for people that are quite wealthy off. And I loved it. It's very big. And except for some points that were a lot about politics, I was not bored at any time. I love these characters. I love the soap opera aspect of it without it really going too soapy. It was a perfect balance. Loved this. But it's also kind of on the list because it's very, very big. Another book on the list that is very, very big is Stamped from the Beginning by Ibram x Kendi. I read this at the beginning of the year. Also very big. Non-fiction. Also took me a while to read this. It's non-fiction about the history of racism in America. It starts off in the Middle Ages in Africa, and it talks about the slave trade to America, and then everything after that. It's very extensive. There's a lot of information in this, as you may see by all of my flippy flops. I love this. Learned so much. It is a book that would benefit from a reread because of all the information in it, and even though it's not necessarily repetitive, but it does make a couple of points a couple of times. But would absolutely recommend this, especially if you've got the time and love to delve in a topic, then this one is great. And even though for me as a European it's not necessarily about my history, there are still a lot of points that are very, very relevant. Then another one that I really, really liked is Dutch, and it's Confrontaties by Simone Atanga Bekono. This is a debut novel. It's about a 16-year-old girl that is sent to the youth detention center because she did some things to a couple of classmates. We don't really know what. And this describes her life in the youth detention center. She has to be there for just a couple of months. But in that detention center there are obviously other kids, she's mostly with girls, that have done stuff, you don't really know what or why, but there's also some teachers who, one has been in a reality TV show and he said some pretty racist stuff in there, and that man is supposed to be her, what's it called, her therapist. So you can imagine what her life is like. The writing in this is what I really loved. It was clean and crisp, and I really got into this girl's head. It was a wonderful book, and I'm really looking forward to seeing whatever else Simone Atanga Bekono comes up with. It's not translated yet, and we'll have to see whether that happens. Next we have Greenwood by Christie. I also love this one. It's about trees and it's a family saga and there's a mystery, and it's told like when you cut through a tree, you know, you've got these rings, and this one does that. Unfortunately, so I do have it, sorry. So it's told, and you start in 2038 when there are no trees left and it's difficult to breathe, etc., etc. And our main character discovers that the piece of land that she is on, where tourists come to see a tree, that she has a heritage link to it, and she starts learning about her family. So the part after that is the story of her father in 2008. Then we've got the story of her grandmother in 1974, and then we've got the story in 1934 and in 1908 of stuff that happened before that, that links into her family tree. And then we go back to the future again. So we've got then again 1934, 1974, 2008, and we go back in 2038, and everything comes back together. It's like I said, there is a mystery element, so that's the stuff that happens in the past that I can't really tell you about without spoiling lots of stuff. The trees are throughout all of these stories. You still have trees. That's not necessarily the binding thing, because the binding thing is obviously the family, but the trees are still present and mean different things to different people, and I don't know, have a wonderful presence, different than from the Over story, but still wonderful. This one is a lot more plot driven than the Over story, and I really liked it. Obviously, because it's on this list. Now we're approaching the waters of the books that I liked even more, so these were kind of 4.5 stars-ish. If we are still doing stars, I'm not sure yet. But I've also got some books that were definite 5 stars, so these aren't the top 3 yet, but we're getting there. One is, let me see, which one are we going to start with? This one, Le liseur du 6h27 by Jean-Paul Didierlaurent. This one has been translated to The Reader of the 627. It's heartwarming. I have talked about it previously. So this is about a man that works in a factory where they make pulp from books. Books that have not been sold or that have a misprint or something, they will bring it back to pulp. And one of the things he has to do is at the end of each day or at the end of each week, he has to go into that machine and clean it up a little bit. And what he does is that he steals a couple of pages. And when he goes to his work, when in the train of the 627, he reads those pages. And they're a eclectic bunch, but the people in that train love it. It really brings them out of the everyday slowness and depression of being in a train at 6:25 to go to a job that you don't like. So that's one of the things that he does, but he does other similar heartwarming things to a friend, for example, who's lost his legs and who's lost his legs in the machine that pulps the books, and we know that his legs are in a certain book, so he does stuff with that. He finds pages of a woman that he becomes interested in, and we've got lots of lovely heartwarming feeling. I absolutely love it. It's completely weird. I mean, legs that are in a book, it's weird, but it's heartwarming. It's very cute. It's a quick read. Would absolutely recommend this one. Now we've got 2 books that I haven't talked about yet, that I read in December and I absolutely loved. One is historical fiction. It's Homeland by Fernando Aramburu. It's translated from the Spanish, and in Spanish the book is Patria. The name is Patria. So this one is set in the Basque country, and it kind of starts off when ETA announces that they are done. So ETA, in case you don't know, is a group that was seen as terrorist, and they wanted the Basque country to be independent, but they did that through violent acts. And when this happens, a widow decides that she's going to go back to the village that she used to live with her husband and her children, and they had to leave, well, she had to leave after her husband was murdered, and he was murdered by ETA. And then the book starts going back and forth in time a lot, and you see her story, that of her husband, that of their children. She has 2 children, and what the death of their father and what the movement of ETA did to their lives. But we also have a family that they were very close to. So the widow and had a very dear friend when she was young already. And those families get close, the children are friends, etc., etc. But one of those children joins ETA, and you see also all of their point of views, what happens in the past, what happens now with ETA, being closed off, deciding that they're not going to continue. You see all of these different points of view and other things that happen, and the tension between the families and not talking about family trauma, etc., etc., etc. It goes back and forth the whole time. It's not two timelines. You don't necessarily know where you are. And I was listening to it on audio, so maybe the book did have dates and names or whatever, but for me that wasn't the case. And that made it starts off with just the death of the husband, but you see all of the ramifications and all of the meaning after being Basque and etc., etc. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It took me a while to get into it in the beginning because it switches a lot. I couldn't keep the two friends apart. Maybe that was done on purpose, which would be brilliant. Because with the death of the man, the families don't talk anymore, and I loved it. I will need to get the book. I would absolutely recommend it. There are a lot of Basque terms in the book, and I was talking to a friend just a couple of days ago who's reading it right now, and he said that he had struggled with it because he kept going back to the list of Basque words to try to understand what they were. But because I was listening to it on audio, I was like, okay, another word, who cares? And you start getting a feeling for them. So Etrushka quickly started to be a thing. Loved Homeland. It's brilliant. All the ramifications, nuance, great. Completely different. I also loved Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. I read this in the last 2 weeks, I think. Read it really quickly. It's a short book. It's completely weird. This is a difficult one to talk about. As a lot of you will know, Susanna Clarke, this book won the Women's Prize for Fiction this year, and it talks about Piranesi, who is a character that lives in a very weird cave castle place with a lot of halls and a lot of statues, and people get lost in there a lot. And he's kind of doing research, and he's doing that with a character that is called The Other. And things starts to change when there's a little bit of influence from outside, and you discover things about this world, about Piranesi. It's great. It is weird, but not in a I have no idea what's going on and I don't feel safe, but in a magical, I kind of want to go to this place, even though it's not Narnia happy magic. It's felt real, and I felt in perfectly safe hands with Susanna Clarke. There was no point at which I thought, I have no idea where this is going and I wonder if it's going to go well. From the first page onwards, I knew it was going to be good. So yeah, the writing is wonderful, where the thing goes, it's great. It's got this little philosophical things to it. Yeah, no, love the Piranesi. Would recommend. I'm missing a book. Yes, I remember. See, I've got most of them stacked in front of me, and I know there were 11, but I missed one of the ones that I don't have in front of me. Anyway, it's Erased, the Untold Story of the Panama Canal by Marisa Lasso. It's non-fiction as well, and it talks about the history, the stories of the people living in the area of the Panama Canal and surrounding the Panama Canal before, during, and after it was built. The area around the Panama Canal was kind of given to the US as a thank you for helping Panama get their independence, and the area had a rich history, and the people had been living there for decades and decades and decades, and then they had to leave. And well, not necessarily, it wasn't, oh, you have to leave now. It was a step-by-step kind of thing. The stories are great. The way it really showed how you can think of something behind your desk, but if you don't go to the place, if you don't talk to the people, if you don't really try to understand them and understand them through their values and not with your values, you're going to make weird-ass decisions. It was very interesting. And with nonfiction, sometimes there's so much information that you need to underline, you need to work through it, and this wasn't that. This was very well told. There was just enough information. Absolutely loved it. Loved it. Now we have arrived to top 3. So these are definitely not in order. One day I will prefer one day I will prefer the other, but these are the top 3, I say. So one is one I don't own yet. I read it at the beginning of the year and then put it already on the list of, oh, I will want to buy this at one point, and with birthdays and Christmas and stuff, I kept putting it on lists that I gave to people, like, hey, if you want to give me something, this is an option. It hasn't arrived to me yet, but the same is going to go with Homeland and Erase. Those are also books that I love so much that I want to own them, so they're going to go on that list. But sometimes people don't seem to want to give me books sometimes, so I'm just going to do it myself, I think. But it is Passing by Nila Larsen. It's the story of 2 women who meet, who used to go to school together, and both can pass as white, and they do so in a very different way. One sometimes will go to a restaurant and not be open about her being black because she's sick of being looked at in that way, and the other has gone for the whole I am a white person life, and she marries a racist husband, and etc, etc. But she comes back into the life of the woman that is culturally still black and lives in the black community, and it talks about what that means and the stress between the two. And it's a short book, it's masterfully written, the tension is awesome, I can't really put my finger on what makes it so great. The build-up was great. You sense that it's going somewhere, but you don't know where. There's this kind of underlying drama, but still being very quiet and poised, and absolutely great. I'm kind of nervous to watch the Netflix adaptation because, and I don't know whether this is a good enough point, but I looked at the trailer and I noticed that it was filmed in black and white. And I understand that that is done to give this idea that, well, we don't really know if this person looks white, is black, how do you deal with that? And so I understand that for that they went for black and white, because then you don't know. But I also think that there are people out there who actually look this way, who have white features but who are black. Those people exist. It's not an invented thing that you can only portray through black and white, like it would be some sort of dragon that you need CGI. Do you understand what I mean? So I'm kind of nervous to watch it. On the other hand, it will make me... I'm curious also to see the adaptation, so we're gonna have to see, but that is Passing by Nila Larsen. Then we have a short story collection. You might know what it is, but it's interesting to me that this short story collection made it to the top 3. Ta-da! I visualize these books like, oh, I hope I'm going to make it. Not the case. Because I've also realized this year that short story collections are not for me and I should just stop reading them. But this one, I loved. It's Exhalation by Ted Chiang. It's magical. It's got these philosophical ideas. It has a soul. I loved every single one of them. Yeah, it's great. The cover is great. I just love this. I love the stories have this peace to them, still being thought-provoking but still peaceful. And I have his other book, Stories of My Life and Others, that I know I'm going to love because everybody says that that one is even better, and therefore I'm a little bit apprehensive. But yeah, this one is great. Can't explain it more. Sorry. Yeah, that's gonna be it. Last but not least, I think this would be, if I really had to choose one, this might be it, but on another day it might still be Exhalation. By the way, both Exhalation and Passing were books that I read with my book club. And I think even Exhalation, I was hesitating to pick it up because I thought, I don't think this is going to be for me. And look at what it is now. Anyway, the one that for now I'm going to name last is Disorientale by Négar Djavadi. This one is about a woman who, when she's a young girl, her family decides to move from Iran to France because her father has political views and is persecuted. It's a family saga, so we see her story when she's an adult. We see the story of her parents when she's still an adult, when they move to France, when they're still living in Iran, when they start having kids. We see the story of her parents when they are children and their parents, their brothers, their sisters. It's woven together very well, and you see, it's what I love about family sagas is that stuff starts to emerge. Things that at the beginning just are like loose incidents. You see how they tie in. You see the ramifications. It's a little bit the same with Greenwood. One of the things that I love, and also with Suitable Boys, you see consequences. And family sagas that go through a couple of decades, especially when a family moves from one country to the other. And we've also got the Iranian Revolution in this. We've got culture clashes, cultures where sometimes it's hard to talk about certain topics that then become a thing. This is great. It's very well written. I read her other book also that came out this year, last year, Arène, that I also loved, but it's not a family saga, and family sagas, I just love them. So Disorientale is absolutely great. It is a little bit bigger, and it's awesome. Those were the 11 books. I think, yes, this is my list. It feels weird to have 11, but I couldn't leave out A Suitable Boy, and I couldn't leave out Stamped from the Beginning, also because they are big. And the others I just loved. So now we have 11 books. I still need to get me some of them because I like to own my favorites. But this is now the stack of my favorite books of this year. Some are wrong side up. Anyway, if you've read any of these, please talk to me because we are going to be friends, I think. I mean, a lot of people like Piranesi, so that might not be a good judge. But still, would love to hear from you as always. What were your favorite books? I obviously have no idea what to read next. I don't have any TBR or something. There are not a couple of thousands of books waiting for me that I want to read, but I still would like to add more to the list. So talk to me about your favorite books and why you love them, because I need more. I love this period of time when we're also happy about all the things and we're all going to tackle our TBRs and not buy so many books, and it doesn't happen, but now we're still hopeful. I'm going to stop talking. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Ba-chum, ba-chum, chum.